The birthday cake sat untouched on the mahogany table I'd paid $3,000 to rent for the evening. Crystal glasses clinked around me, filled with wine that cost more per bottle than most people make in a day. I stood there in my best suit, the one Sarah had picked out because she said my others made me look too blue-collar, watching my wife of 12 years prepare to destroy me in front of 30 of our closest friends and family. Everyone, Sarah's voice cut through the chatter like a knife through silk. She raised her champagne flute and the room fell silent. Her smile was radiant, the kind that had made me fall in love with her back when we were both broke college kids sharing ramen noodles and dreams. I should have known something was wrong when she insisted on this party. Sarah had never been one for big celebrations, especially not ones that cost money we didn't really have, but she'd been different lately, distant, secretive, always on her phone with that little smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice carrying that practiced sweetness she used with clients at the interior design firm. "It means the world to me to have the people I love most celebrating another year of life." I relaxed slightly. Maybe I'd been paranoid. Maybe the stress of keeping my contracting business afloat while she climbed the corporate ladder had made me imagine things that weren't there. I also want to thank my wonderful husband, David, for organizing all of this. She gestured toward me with her free hand, and I felt a flush of pride. Though I have to be honest with everyone here. The room seemed to lean forward collectively. Sarah's smile never wavered. "David, sweetheart, you really shouldn't worry so much about impressing people. I know you've been trying so hard lately, planning these elaborate gestures, buying expensive gifts, but honestly," she paused for effect, her eyes scanning the faces around us. "Don't be under any misunderstanding. You're just temporary." The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. A few people laughed uncomfortably, thinking it was some kind of inside joke. But I knew better. I could see it in her eyes. The cold calculation, the satisfaction at finally saying what she'd been thinking for months. "You see," she continued, her voice growing stronger as she warmed to her topic. "Some of you know that my first real love, Marcus, moved back to town last month. We've been reconnecting, and well," she shrugged delicately. "David's been a wonderful placeholder, but let's not pretend this is permanent. I just don't want him getting jealous when Marcus starts coming around more often. We're all adults here, right?" The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel 30 pairs of eyes on me, waiting to see how I'd react to being publicly humiliated by the woman I'd spent 12 years loving, supporting, and believing in. My hands were steady as I set down my untouched glass of wine. My voice was calm when I spoke. "Excuse me." I walked to the front of the restaurant where the manager was hovering nervously behind the host stand. The poor guy had probably heard every word. The dining room wasn't that big, and Sarah had never been one to speak quietly when she wanted to make a point. "I need to settle the bill," I said quietly. "Sir, I thought the party was paid for." "The deposit was. There's still the balance for tonight, plus the open bar tab, the cake, and the flowers." I pulled out my credit card, the one Sarah didn't have access to, thank God. "All of it, now." The manager's fingers flew over the tablet. "That'll be $4,237, sir." I didn't even flinch. I'd learned a long time ago that sometimes dignity costs money, and this was worth every penny. "Would you like me to box up the cake, sir?" "Keep it. Maybe someone will actually enjoy it." I signed the receipt, pocketed my card, and walked out of the restaurant without looking back. Behind me, I could hear the murmur of confused voices and Sarah's sharp tone cutting through the noise, probably trying to salvage her performance. The October air was crisp against my face as I stood on the sidewalk outside Romano's, the restaurant where Sarah and I had celebrated our first anniversary, where I'd thought we'd celebrate many more. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone started buzzing before I even reached my truck. Sarah, then her best friend Jennifer, then her mother. I let them all go to voicemail. The drive home to our suburban split level took 20 minutes. 20 minutes to process the fact that my marriage was over and had been for longer than I'd realized. 20 minutes to understand that while I'd been working 60-hour weeks to pay for her lifestyle, she'd been planning my replacement. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Our 18-year-old daughter Emma was at college, probably posting on social media about her cringe dad, without knowing she'd just lost her family. The lawn I'd mowed that morning looked perfect under the streetlights. The mortgage I'd been paying alone for the past 6 months was current. Everything looked normal from the outside. I sat in my truck for a long time, engine ticking as it cooled, thinking about the last year of my life. The late nights Sarah had started working, the business trips that seemed to multiply, the way she'd stopped wearing her wedding ring, claiming it got in the way at work, the credit card bills for restaurants I'd never been to, and clothes that never appeared in her closet. I'd been temporary. The question was, for how long? My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. "David, this is Robert Castellano, Sarah's uncle. I think we need to talk." Robert Castellano had always been the kind of man who wore his law degree like a badge of honor. Even at family barbecues, he'd find ways to work his professional accomplishments into casual conversation. Tonight, as he sat across from me in my own living room at 11 p.m., he looked every inch the successful attorney, pressed shirt despite the late hour, gold watch catching the lamplight, briefcase at his feet like a faithful dog. "David, I'll be direct," he began, setting his coffee cup down on the table without using a coaster. Sarah would have had a fit. What happened tonight was unfortunate. Sarah's emotions got the better of her. She's been under a lot of stress at work, and sometimes people say things they don't mean. I leaned back in my chair and studied him. Robert had never liked me. That much had been clear from the day I'd asked for his blessing to marry his niece. I was too blue-collar, too rough around the edges for his precious Sarah. The fact that I'd built a successful business from nothing didn't matter to him. I wasn't born into money, so I'd never be good enough. "Stress," I repeated. "Is that what we're calling it?" "Look, I know you're hurt, but think about this rationally. You've got a good thing here. Nice house, successful wife, daughter in college. Why throw it all away over one bad night?" I almost laughed. "One bad night? Robert, your niece just announced to 30 people that I'm a temporary placeholder while she reconnects with her ex-boyfriend. She told them not to worry when he starts coming around more often. How exactly do you spin that into stress?" Robert shifted uncomfortably. "Sarah told me about the financial pressures you've been under. The business hasn't been doing well, has it? Maybe she's feeling insecure about the future, looking for stability." "Stop." I held up my hand. "Just stop. My business is fine. More than fine, actually. I've got 3 major contracts lined up for next year and a crew of 8 guys who depend on me for their livelihoods. The only financial pressure in this house comes from your niece's shopping habits and her need to keep up with her new friends at that design firm." "David, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable. I paid for tonight's party. $4,000 for the privilege of being humiliated in public. I've been paying the mortgage alone for 6 months because Sarah claims her salary is tied up in investments. I've been covering Emma's college expenses while Sarah spends her money on designer clothes and spa weekends with Jennifer. So tell me, Robert, exactly what part of this arrangement am I supposed to fight to keep?" Robert's jaw tightened. "You're making a mistake. Sarah is a beautiful, intelligent woman with a bright future ahead of her. She could have any man she wants. The fact that she chose you should tell you something about her character." There it was, the truth he'd been dancing around for 12 years. In Robert's mind, I should be grateful that his niece had lowered herself to marry me. I should accept whatever scraps of affection she threw my way and keep my mouth shut about the rest. "You're right," I said, standing up. "It does tell me something about her character, just not what you think." Robert rose as well, straightening his tie like he was preparing for battle. Don't be foolish, David. You sign those divorce papers and you'll lose everything. The house, half your business, probably your relationship with Emma. Sarah's not vindictive, but she's also not stupid. She knows her worth. And what exactly is her worth, Robert? More than you can afford to lose." The threat hung in the air between us like smoke. Robert was good at this, the subtle intimidation, the implication that I was punching above my weight class. It had worked for years, keeping me in line, making me grateful for whatever attention Sarah deigned to give me. But something had shifted tonight. Maybe it was the public humiliation, or maybe it was finally seeing myself through Sarah's eyes, not as a partner, but as an inconvenience she'd grown tired of managing. Either way, I was done playing the grateful peasant. "You know what, Robert? You're absolutely right. Sarah is worth more than I can afford to lose. Lucky for me, I'm not losing her. I'm getting rid of her." His face flushed red. "You arrogant son of a—" "Careful," I said quietly. "You're in my house, sitting on furniture I paid for, drinking coffee I made. Don't forget yourself." Robert grabbed his briefcase and headed for the door. "You'll regret this, David. Sarah won't make it easy for you." I wouldn't expect her to. After he left, I sat back down and pulled out my phone. It was almost midnight, but I knew he'd be awake. Tom Morrison had been my best friend since high school, and more importantly, he was the best divorce attorney in the county. "Dave? Jesus, what time is it?" "Tom, I need a lawyer." There was a pause. "What happened?" I told him everything. The party, the announcement, Robert's visit. Tom listened without interrupting, occasionally making small sounds of disbelief. "Christ, Dave, I'm sorry. I always thought Sarah was a little cold, but this... Can you help me? Can I help you? Brother, I'm going to destroy her. But I need you to understand something first. This is going to get ugly, really ugly. Sarah's not going to just roll over, especially with Uncle Robert whispering in her ear. Are you prepared for that? I looked around my living room, at the photos Sarah had arranged just so, the throw pillows she'd spent hours selecting, the coffee table books about interior design that no one ever read, everything perfectly curated to project an image of success and happiness. It was all a lie. It had been a lie for longer than I wanted to admit. Yeah, I said. I'm prepared. Good. Don't talk to Sarah, don't talk to Robert, don't sign anything. And Dave, start documenting everything, every conversation, every text, every expense. We're going to need it all. After I hung up, I walked upstairs to the bedroom Sarah and I had shared for 8 years. Her side of the closet was half empty. Had been for weeks, I realize now. The expensive perfume she used to wear for me was gone, replaced by something new and unfamiliar. I pulled out a suitcase and started packing. I'd stay at the motel on Route 9 until I could find an apartment. The house would have to be sold anyway, and I didn't want to spend another night surrounded by the ghost of a marriage that had died without me noticing. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. We need to talk. This is ridiculous. I deleted it without responding. We'd talked enough for one lifetime. The diner on Maple Street had been our regular spot for 15 years. Every Saturday morning, the same booth, the same order, coffee black, wheat toast, scrambled eggs for me, and whatever elaborate breakfast special caught Mike's fancy that week. We'd solved the world's problems over countless cups of coffee, celebrated each other's successes, and commiserated over failures. This morning felt different. Mike Patterson slid into the booth across from me, but instead of his usual grin and complaint about his wife's honey-do list, he looked uncomfortable. His eyes darted around the diner like he was expecting trouble. Hey, Dave. Mike, I signaled the waitress for coffee. You look like someone stole your truck? He forced a laugh. Nah, just tired. Jennifer had me up half the night rearranging the living room furniture. Again. Jennifer, Sarah's best friend and partner in crime. Of course she'd gotten to Mike first. I should have expected that. How's the job going? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Mike had been working for my company for 3 years, ever since the factory closed and left half the town scrambling for work. He was a good electrician, reliable, and I'd always thought we were friends beyond just the employer-employee relationship. Good. Listen, Dave, about what happened at the party. There it was. I took a sip of coffee and waited. Look, I don't know what's going on between you and Sarah, but Jennifer says you just walked out without any explanation. Left Sarah standing there with a room full of people, embarrassed and confused. Confused? I set down my cup carefully. That's an interesting word choice. Come on, man. You know how women are. They say things when they're upset, things they don't mean. Maybe Sarah was just trying to make you jealous, get your attention. Jennifer thinks, what exactly did Jennifer tell you about that night, Mike? He shifted in his seat. Just that Sarah made some joke about you being temporary, and you took it the wrong way. Overreacted. Jennifer says Sarah's been crying for 3 days, doesn't understand why you won't talk to her. I leaned back and studied my friend's face. Mike was a good guy, but he'd never been the sharpest tool in the shed. If Jennifer told him the sky was green, he'd probably believe it. Still, I'd expected better from him. Did Jennifer mention that Sarah announced she was reconnecting with her ex-boyfriend? That she told 30 people not to worry when he starts coming around because our marriage isn't permanent? Mike's face went pale. She didn't say that part. Did she mention that Sarah told everyone I was just a placeholder while she figured things out with Marcus? Jesus, Dave. No, Jennifer said it was just a joke that went wrong. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the voicemail I'd received yesterday from Jennifer's neighbor, Mrs. Chen. The old woman had been at the party and felt bad about what she'd witnessed. She'd recorded Sarah's speech on her phone, thinking it was going to be a sweet birthday tribute. Want to hear it for yourself? Mike shook his head quickly. No, I believe you. Why would Jennifer lie to me? Because Sarah asked her to. Because they've been best friends since college and friendship trumps truth. Because Jennifer probably helped plan the whole thing. The waitress appeared with our usual orders, but neither of us touched the food. Mike stared at his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. So what now? He asked finally. Now I file for divorce and try to salvage what's left of my dignity. And the job? I looked at him for a long moment. Mike had a wife and 2 kids. He needed the work, and I needed good electricians. But something had changed between us, something that couldn't be undone with coffee and explanations. That depends on you, Mike. Can you work for someone Jennifer's been telling you is an unreasonable asshole who abandoned his wife for no good reason? Dave, come on. It's not like that. Isn't it? You came in here ready to lecture me about overreacting to my wife's joke. You were prepared to tell me I should apologize to her and work things out, all based on Jennifer's version of events, which you now know was complete bullshit. Mike rubbed his face with his hands. I'm sorry, man. I should have asked for your side first. Yes, you should have, but you didn't, because somewhere in your mind, you already decided I was probably in the wrong. Sarah's the successful one, the pretty one, the one with the education and the career. Of course, the blue-collar husband must have screwed up somehow. It's exactly what you thought. And you know what? I don't blame you. I thought the same thing for years every time we had problems. Must be something I did wrong, something I could fix if I just tried harder. Mike was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was small. What do you want me to do? I want you to think about whether you can work for someone you don't respect. Because if you don't respect me enough to hear my side before judging me, then you don't respect me at all. I left $20 on the table and walked out. Behind me, Mike called my name, but I didn't turn around. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. The next few days brought more of the same. Friends who'd known me for years suddenly became distant or openly hostile. Sarah's version of events, filtered through Jennifer and Robert, painted me as an unstable husband who'd abandoned his wife during her birthday celebration. The fact that I'd paid for the party was conveniently omitted from their narrative. By Thursday, I'd lost 3 longtime friends and gained a reputation as either a heartless bastard or a man having a midlife crisis. The guys on my crew were walking on eggshells around me, unsure whether to believe the rumors or trust their own experience. That's when Jennifer decided to pay me a visit. She showed up at the job site where we were renovating a kitchen for the Hendersons, marching across the plastic sheeting in her designer heels like she owned the place. My crew stopped working to stare. Jennifer was the kind of woman who commanded attention, all curves and confidence, and barely contained energy. David, we need to talk. I'm working, Jennifer. This is more important than work. Sarah is falling apart. She hasn't eaten in 3 days, can barely function at the office. You need to stop this nonsense and come home. I set down my drill and turned to face her. Nonsense. This whole divorce thing, it's ridiculous. So Sarah said something stupid at her party. So what? People make mistakes. You don't throw away 12 years of marriage over one bad night. One bad night. I was getting tired of that phrase. Is that what you're calling it? What would you call it? The truth. Finally. Jennifer's perfectly made-up face twisted with frustration. You're being dramatic. Sarah loves you, David. She's always loved you. Yes, she's been confused lately, maybe a little nostalgic about old relationships. But that doesn't mean anything. It's normal for people to wonder about paths not taken. Paths not taken, right. I picked up a rag and wiped the dust off my hands, taking my time. Tell me, Jennifer, how long have you known about Marcus? Her face went very still. I don't know what you mean. Sure you do. How long have you known that Sarah's been talking to her ex-boyfriend? How long have you been helping her reconnect with him? I haven't been helping her do anything. Sarah makes her own decisions. But you knew. You knew she was planning to humiliate me at that party. You knew she was going to announce that our marriage was temporary. And you said nothing. Jennifer's composure cracked slightly. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. Sarah was nervous, had too much wine. She was going to talk to you privately first, explain that she needed some space to figure things out. Space to figure things out. With Marcus. Maybe. I don't know. The point is, she loves you, David. She's just confused right now. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You know what, Jennifer? I believe you. I think Sarah does love me, in her own way. The problem is, her way isn't enough anymore. Jennifer stepped closer, and I caught a whiff of her expensive perfume. Don't do this, David. Don't let your pride destroy your family. Emma needs her parents together. Sarah needs you. And whether you want to admit it or not, you need her too. What I need is a wife who doesn't introduce me as temporary to a room full of people. What I need is a partner who doesn't spend months planning my replacement while I pay for her lifestyle. What I need is someone who respects me enough to end our marriage privately instead of turning it into dinner theater. She made a mistake. No, Jennifer, she told the truth, finally. And you know what? I'm grateful. I could have spent another 5 years wondering why she was so distant, why she didn't wear her ring anymore, why she worked late so often. Instead, she saved me the trouble of figuring it out myself. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. Real ones, I thought, not the crocodile tears she usually deployed when she wanted something. Please, David, don't do this. Sarah's my best friend, and she's destroying herself over this. If you ever loved her, don't let it end like this. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Jennifer genuinely believed she was helping, that love could overcome public humiliation and betrayal if everyone just tried hard enough. I did love her, Jennifer. I loved her more than anything in the world. But love isn't enough when there's no respect. And after what happened at that party, there's no respect left. I turned back to my work, and after a few minutes, Jennifer left. But I knew this wasn't over. Sarah wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully, and with Robert and Jennifer coaching her, things were about to get much worse. I was right. The ambush came on a Friday night at Murphy's Tavern, the blue-collar bar where I'd been drinking beer and shooting pool since I was old enough to hold a cue stick. It should have been neutral territory. A place where working men could relax without pretense or judgment, but apparently nowhere was safe anymore. I was 2 beers into my evening, finally starting to unwind after a week of hostile stares and whispered conversations when they walked in. Mike Patterson, followed by 3 other guys I'd considered friends, Danny Kowalski from the auto shop, Pete Riley, who ran the hardware store, and Mark Stevens, who'd been my drinking buddy since high school. They approached my table like a delegation, faces grim with purpose. The rest of the bar seemed to sense the tension. Conversations died down, and I could feel eyes turning our way. Dave. Mike slid into the booth across from me without being invited. The others remained standing, forming a semicircle that blocked my exit. We need to talk. About what? About what you're doing to Sarah, about how you're acting like a complete asshole to everyone who tries to help you see reason. I took a slow sip of my beer and looked around the table. These were men I'd known for decades, guys I'd helped move, whose kids I'd hired for summer jobs, whose wives I'd given discounts to when money was tight. Now they were looking at me like I was a stranger. Help me see reason, I repeated. Interesting way to put it. Danny leaned forward, his thick arms crossed over his chest. Come on, Dave. We've all been married long enough to know that women say stupid shit sometimes. My Linda once told me she wished she'd married her high school boyfriend instead of me. You know what I did? I bought her flowers and took her out to dinner. We worked through it. Did Linda announce to a room full of people that you were temporary while she reconnected with her ex? That's not the point. That's exactly the point. I set down my beer harder than necessary. This isn't about hurt feelings or miscommunication. This is about my wife publicly declaring that our marriage is a placeholder arrangement. Pete shifted uncomfortably. Look, maybe Sarah handled it wrong, but she's been under a lot of pressure. Jennifer says she's been working crazy hours trying to make partner at that firm. People crack under stress. Jennifer says a lot of things, most of them bullshit. Mark finally spoke up, his voice carrying the authority of our longest friendship. Jesus Christ, Dave. Listen to yourself. You're talking about throwing away 12 years of marriage because your wife made one stupid comment at a party. You think you're going to find better? You think there's some perfect woman out there waiting for a 43-year-old contractor with trust issues? The words hit like a slap. Mark knew how to hurt me. He'd been there through my awkward dating years, my failed relationships before Sarah, my fears that I'd never find someone who could love me despite my rough edges and blue-collar background. Trust issues, I said quietly. That's what we're calling it now? What would you call it? You won't even talk to Sarah. Won't consider counseling. Won't give her a chance to explain or apologize. That sounds like trust issues to me. I looked around the table at these men I'd called friends, seeing them clearly for the first time. They weren't here because they cared about me or my marriage. They were here because their wives had sent them, because Jennifer and Sarah had deployed them like weapons in a war I hadn't known I was fighting. You want to know about trust issues? I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. Let me tell you about trust issues. Trust issues are when your wife stops wearing her wedding ring and claims it's for work. Trust issues are when she starts working late 3 nights a week, but her paychecks don't reflect the overtime. Trust issues are when you find credit card bills for restaurants you've never been to and clothes that never appear in her closet. The bar had gone completely quiet now. Even the jukebox seemed to have stopped playing. Trust issues are when you ignore all of that because you love someone and want to believe the best about them. Trust issues are when you plan an expensive birthday party to show that person how much they mean to you, and they use it as an opportunity to humiliate you in front of everyone you know. Mike tried to interrupt. Dave, I'm not finished. My voice carried across the silent bar. Trust issues are when your so-called friends show up to lecture you about forgiveness and second chances without bothering to ask for your side of the story. Trust issues are when you realize that the people you've known for 20 years think so little of you that they automatically assume you're the problem. Danny's face was red with anger. Nobody thinks you're the problem, but you're sure as hell making yourself one. Sarah made a mistake. She's sorry. Why can't you just man up and forgive her? Man up, I laughed, but it sounded bitter even to my own ears. You know what manning up looks like, Danny? It looks like refusing to accept being treated like garbage just because the person doing it is pretty and successful. It looks like having enough self-respect to walk away when someone tells a room full of people that you're disposable. You're being dramatic, Pete said. It was one comment. It wasn't one comment! The words exploded out of me, months of suppressed frustration and hurt finally finding their voice. It was the truth. Sarah didn't make a mistake at that party. She told everyone exactly how she feels about me and our marriage. The mistake was mine, for being too blind and stupid to see it sooner. Mark stood up, his face hard with anger. Fine. You want to be a victim? Be a victim. But don't expect us to stand around and watch you destroy your life over wounded pride. Wounded pride? I shook my head. You really don't get it, do you? This isn't about pride. This is about finally seeing myself clearly. For 12 years, I've been grateful that Sarah chose me. Grateful that someone so beautiful and smart and successful would settle for a guy like me. I've spent 12 years trying to be worthy of her, trying to prove I deserved her love. I pulled out my wallet and threw a 20 on the table. But you know what I figured out? I don't need to prove anything to anyone. Not to Sarah, not to her uncle, not to Jennifer, and sure as hell not to you guys. I'm a good man. I work hard, I pay my bills, I treat people with respect. If that's not enough for Sarah, then she's not enough for me. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel the weight of every eye in the bar, could sense the shift in the room's energy. Some faces showed understanding, others disapproval, but all of them were seeing me differently than they had 5 minutes ago. Mike made one last attempt. Dave, come on. Don't let it end like this. We're your friends. No, I said quietly. You're Sarah's friends. You're Jennifer's friends. You're here because your wives told you to fix me, to talk sense into me, to make me go back to being the grateful husband who doesn't cause problems. I looked at each of them in turn. Real friends would have asked for my side of the story. Real friends would have supported me when my marriage fell apart, not blamed me for it. Real friends wouldn't have shown up here like some kind of intervention to convince me that being humiliated in public is something I should just get over. I started toward the door, then turned back. And Mark, you asked if I think I'll find better. Here's the thing. I don't need to find better. I just need to stop accepting worse. The cold October air hit my face as I walked out of Murphy's Tavern for what I knew would be the last time. Behind me, I could hear the low murmur of conversation resuming. Probably dissecting what had just happened, taking sides, choosing camps. Let them talk. I was done caring what people thought about my choices. I was done being grateful for scraps of affection and friendship. I was done being the reasonable one, the understanding one, the one who always bent over backward to keep everyone else comfortable. For the first time in months, I felt free. But freedom, I was about to learn, came with a price. The final showdown came on a Tuesday morning in November, in the sterile conference room of Morrison and Associates law firm. Sarah sat across from me at the polished oak table, flanked by Robert and a sharp-faced woman I didn't recognize. Her name was Patricia Vance, and according to Tom, she specialized in high-conflict divorces, where wealthy wives needed to be protected from vindictive husbands. Sarah looked terrible. The confident, glowing woman who had humiliated me at her birthday party was gone, replaced by someone hollow-eyed and brittle. She'd lost weight she couldn't afford to lose, and her expensive clothes hung on her frame like they belonged to someone else. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "David," she said as I took my seat next to Tom. Her voice was small, uncertain. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. I was hoping we could work this out between ourselves, without lawyers getting in the way." Patricia Vance leaned forward before I could respond. "My client is prepared to be very reasonable, Mr. Carter. Despite the emotional trauma you've caused by abandoning her without warning, Mrs. Carter is willing to consider a reconciliation if certain conditions are met." Tom laughed, actually laughed, and I saw Robert's face darken with anger. Abandoning her? Is that what we're calling it when someone leaves a party where their spouse publicly announces they're temporary? "My client made an unfortunate comment while under the influence of alcohol," Patricia continued smoothly. "She's prepared to apologize and seek counseling to address the underlying issues in the marriage." "Underlying issues," I repeated. "Such as?" Sarah finally found her voice. "David, I know I hurt you. I know what I said was wrong, and I'm sorry. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work on our communication, rebuild the trust." "What trust, Sarah?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, and I could see her trying to summon the charm that had always worked on me before. The trembling lip, the vulnerable look, the promise that things would be different if I just gave her another chance. "I know you're angry," she whispered. "You have every right to be. But I love you, David. I've always loved you. What I said at the party, it wasn't real. I was confused, scared about turning 40, worried about our finances. Marcus had been texting me, bringing up old memories, and I guess I got caught up in some fantasy about the past." "Texting you." Tom made a note on his legal pad. "For how long?" Sarah's lawyer shot her a warning look, but it was too late. It doesn't matter. It was just talking." "How long, Sarah?" 6 months, she admitted quietly. "Maybe 7, but it was innocent, David. Just old friends catching up." Robert leaned forward, his face flushed with anger. "This is irrelevant. Whatever communication my niece had with her former boyfriend has no bearing on this divorce. The fact remains that David abandoned his wife and home without cause." "Without cause?" Tom's voice was dangerously quiet. "Mr. Castellano, are you seriously arguing that publicly humiliating someone at a party they paid for doesn't constitute cause for divorce?" It was one comment made under emotional distress. It was a calculated announcement that the marriage was temporary while she pursued another relationship. Tom opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. A relationship that, according to phone records we've subpoenaed, included over 300 text messages and 47 phone calls in the 6 months prior to the party. The color drained from Sarah's face. Patricia Vance looked like she'd been slapped. Robert's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "You subpoenaed my phone records?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "Your husband's phone records," Tom corrected, "which show that you've been in constant contact with Marcus Sullivan since April, including a 2-hour phone call the night before your birthday party." I watched Sarah's face crumble as the reality of the situation hit her. She'd thought this would be easy, that she could manipulate me into taking her back with tears and apologies. She hadn't counted on Tom Morrison, who fought divorce cases like a general planning a war. "There's more," Tom continued, pulling out another document. "Credit card records showing charges at the Riverside Motel on 6 different occasions over the past 4 months, always on days when Mrs. Carter claimed to be working late." "That's enough," Patricia said sharply. "This is clearly a fishing expedition designed to embarrass my client." "Your client embarrassed herself," Tom replied. "We're simply documenting the pattern of deception and infidelity that led to the breakdown of this marriage." Sarah was crying now, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. "David, please. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. I'll cut off all contact with Marcus. I'll quit my job if you want. We can start over somewhere else, just the 2 of us." For a moment, I saw the girl I'd fallen in love with 20 years ago. Young, vulnerable, full of dreams and promises. But that girl was gone, replaced by a woman who'd spent months planning my replacement while I paid for her life. "It's too late, Sarah." "It's not." She reached across the table, trying to grab my hands. "David, I love you. I know I hurt you, but people make mistakes. You can't throw away 12 years of marriage because I got confused and said something stupid." "I'm not throwing away 12 years of marriage," I said quietly. "You already did that. I'm just making it official." Robert slammed his hand on the table. "This is ridiculous. Sarah made one comment at a party, and you're acting like she committed murder. You're supposed to be a man, David. Men forgive their wives when they make mistakes." Something cold and hard settled in my chest. "You want to talk about being a man, Robert? Let me tell you what a real man does. A real man doesn't accept being treated like garbage just because the person doing it is family. A real man doesn't beg someone to love him, and a real man sure as hell doesn't stay married to someone who announces to 30 people that he's a temporary placeholder." I stood up, and Tom gathered his papers. "My client's position is simple," I said, looking directly at Sarah. "He wants an uncontested divorce with an equitable division of assets. No alimony, no ongoing financial obligations beyond Emma's college expenses, which he'll continue to pay in full. Mrs. Carter can keep her retirement accounts and her car. Mr. Carter will keep his business and his retirement accounts. The house will be sold and the proceeds split 50-50. "That's completely unreasonable," Patricia protested. My client has been out of the workforce for..." "My client has been working full-time at an interior design firm for 3 years," Tom interrupted. "She has a college degree and marketable skills. She's perfectly capable of supporting herself." Sarah was still crying, but now there was anger mixed with the tears. "You bastard! You're going to leave me with nothing." "I'm leaving you with exactly what you brought to this marriage," I replied. "Your education, your career, and your freedom to pursue whatever relationship makes you happy. Isn't that what you wanted?" "I wanted my husband to fight for me." The words exploded out of her, raw and desperate. I wanted you to care enough to get angry, to demand that I choose, to show some passion for once in your life instead of just accepting everything like a beaten dog. The silence that followed was absolute. Even Patricia Vance looked stunned by her client's outburst. Robert was staring at his niece like he'd never seen her before. You wanted me to fight for you, I said slowly. So you humiliated me in public and started an affair to get my attention? It wasn't an affair. I never slept with Marcus. But you wanted to. You were planning to. That's why you announced I was temporary. You were clearing the way for him to take my place. Sarah's face crumpled. I don't know what I wanted. I was confused, scared of getting older, afraid that I'd settled for less than I deserved. Less than you deserved. I shook my head. There it is. The truth, finally. You think you settled for me, Sarah. You think you deserve better than a blue-collar contractor who loves you enough to work 60-hour weeks to pay for your lifestyle. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. And you know what? You're right. You do deserve better than me. You deserve someone who'll put up with your games, your manipulation, your need to be the center of attention at all times. You deserve someone who'll beg you to choose them over your ex-boyfriend. I picked up my jacket and headed for the door. Unfortunately for you, I've decided I deserve better too. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. Sarah contested nothing. Tom had made it clear that going to trial would only result in more of her secrets being aired in public court. She moved in with Jennifer temporarily, then disappeared from town entirely. I heard through the grapevine that she'd taken a job with a design firm in Boston, starting over in a city where no one knew about her failed marriage or public humiliation. Marcus never materialized as her knight in shining armor. Apparently, the fantasy of rekindling an old romance was more appealing than the reality of dating a recently divorced woman with emotional baggage. Emma came home for Christmas break and spent an awkward week trying to navigate the new reality of her parents' divorce. She blamed me at first, parroting Sarah's version of events about her father's unreasonable behavior and refusal to forgive, but Emma was smart, and as the details emerged, she began to understand what had really happened. Mom really said you were temporary? She asked one evening as we sat in my new apartment, eating takeout Chinese food off paper plates. She did. In front of all those people? Yeah. Emma was quiet for a long time, picking at her lo mein with plastic chopsticks. That's really messed up, Dad. Yeah, it is. Are you okay? I mean, really okay? I looked at my daughter, 18 years old, smart, beautiful, on the verge of becoming the woman she was meant to be. She deserved honesty, not the careful lies adults usually told children about divorce. I'm better than I've been in years, I said. I'm hurt, and I'm angry, and I'm disappointed. But I'm also free. Free from walking on eggshells, free from wondering what I did wrong, free from trying to earn love from someone who saw me as a consolation prize. Emma nodded slowly. Mom called me yesterday. She's seeing a therapist, trying to figure out why she sabotaged her marriage. She wanted me to ask if you'd consider talking to her. What did you tell her? I told her that some things can't be fixed with therapy and apologies. Some things, once you break them, stay broken. Smart kid. Smarter than her old man had been for most of his adult life. 6 months after the divorce was final, I ran into Mike Patterson at the hardware store. He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot like he was trying to decide whether to acknowledge me or pretend he hadn't seen me. Dave, how are you doing? Good, Mike. Really good. I heard you got the Morrison construction contract. That's huge. Yeah, business is good. It was more than good. Without Sarah's expensive tastes and constant need for upgrades, I was saving more money than I'd ever thought possible. The Morrison job would set me up for years. Mike nodded awkwardly. Listen, about that night at Murphy's, I was out of line. We all were. I should have heard your side before judging you. Water under the bridge. Is it? Because I've been thinking about what you said, about real friends and all. You were right. We should have supported you instead of trying to fix you. I studied his face, looking for signs of sincerity. Mike had always been a follower, easily influenced by stronger personalities, but he seemed genuinely remorseful. I appreciate that, Mike. Any chance we could grab a beer sometime? Talk things through? I thought about it for a moment. The old me would have said yes immediately, grateful for any sign of acceptance or forgiveness. The new me had learned to value my time and energy more carefully. Maybe, I said finally, but not at Murphy's. Mike laughed, and for a moment it felt like old times. Yeah, I figured. That place has too many memories. Too many ghosts. As I drove home to my small but comfortable apartment, I thought about ghosts and memories and the price of starting over. Sarah had wanted me to fight for her, to prove my love through jealousy and desperation. Instead, I'd fought for myself, for my dignity, my self-respect, and my right to be valued by the people in my life. It had cost me a marriage, several friendships, and the comfortable illusion that love was enough to overcome any obstacle. But it had given me something more valuable, the knowledge that I was worth fighting for, even if I had to do the fighting myself. The phone rang as I was unlocking my door. Emma's number flashed on the screen. "Hey, kiddo?" "Dad? I just wanted to tell you something. I'm proud of you." "Proud of me for what?" "For not taking her back. For knowing your worth. For showing me what self-respect looks like." I felt my throat tighten with emotion. "Thanks, Em. That means everything to me." "I love you, Dad. I love you too." After I hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment and thought about the man I'd been a year ago. Grateful, accommodating, always trying to prove he deserved the love he was given. That man was gone, replaced by someone harder but more honest, someone who understood that respect couldn't be earned from people who didn't want to give it. Sarah had called me temporary, thinking it would motivate me to fight harder for her affection. Instead, she'd freed me from the prison of trying to be enough for someone who would never see my worth. In the end, she'd given me the greatest gift possible, the truth about who she really was and the courage to become who I was meant to be.